Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about Norwegian gender. By gender I mean grammatical gender. So first of all, I see a lot of people are confused about grammatical gender, especially English speakers, because in English you don't really have this concept of gender of a word. So what that means is take something like a book or a cloud or a newspaper. They can have different gender, and the gender that the noun has means that they need to have specific articles like a or an. You have kind of like a similar thing with you say, the way that you say a tree, but you say an apple or an orange. There's a dead end right here. Let's go the other way. You have this thing with like an apple, an orange, but you say a tree or a bush. In Norwegian, what we do instead is we call it masculine, neuter, and feminine. In Norwegian, that is hankjønn, hunnkjønn, intetkjønn. For masculine, feminine, and neuter. Neuter meaning like sort of like a middle gender, or like the last gender kind of. Let me just jump over this one here. Okay, so the downside though is that in English you'll know when you look at a noun, you'll know if it starts with a vowel sound, you know that you have to have an first, like an orange or an owl. But in Norwegian, we don't have that. So what you do instead is you have to learn the gender of the word when you learn the word. So for example, if you want to say a house in Norwegian is et hus. And the article here is et because it's neuter. In Norwegian, there's 3 articles that correspond to a or an in English. There's en for masculine, I for feminine, and et for neuter. So house is neuter, so it's et hus. Tree is also neuter, so a tree is et tre. Let's try to get out of this bush. Also, if you want to say a man, it's en mann. Or if you want to say something like a cow, that would be ei ku. But here's the interesting part. In modern Norwegian, specifically Norwegian spoken in the cities, in Oslo and also in Bergen they do this. What we do is we don't really use the feminine articles that much. So if there is a feminine noun like ei ku, a cow, we would just use the masculine instead. So it's en ku. So what we actually do is we think of the masculine article en, we think of that instead as sort of like a common gender. So it's either like common gender or it's neuter gender. So every time you have something being feminine gender, like ei avis, ei ku, or ei hylle, instead you can just say en avis, en ku, en hylle, and it's all grammatically correct as well. In fact, that's actually what we prefer in the big cities, at least. If you travel outside of the big cities, like right now, I am in a smaller town, sort of, called Steinkjer, in the middle of Norway. Here, the dialect that people use here, they actually like force the use of the feminine gender in the nouns. So here, they really strictly would say ei avis. Every time you learn a new noun in Norwegian, what we usually do when we're kids growing up is we learn the gender and then we conjugate it according to the gender. So for example, if you follow the standard rules, if you actually use all the genders, you would say, for example, with a man, we would say en mann, mannen, menn, mennene. Literally what that is a man, the men, men, the men. If you're more linguistically inclined, it is the indefinite singular, definite singular, indefinite plural, and definite plural. So for example, if it's neuter, like et hus, you would say et hus, huset, hus, husene. In the definite singular, you can see that it doesn't conjugate, it just stays the same as the base form. The reason why that is because there's a rule in Norwegian that when you have a noun that is neuter and it's in plural, it only has one syllable, hus, hus, only one syllable, then it doesn't change. Generally, when you have a indefinite plural, you would say you always put at the end, except for the example I used before with man, because man is an exception. Just cross right here. Whoop. And then if you want to conjugate it in feminine, like a newspaper is feminine, then you can say, you can either conjugate it the feminine way or you can conjugate it the masculine way, and they're both grammatically correct. You can either say the feminine way, ei avis, avisa, aviser, avisene. Or if you conjugate it the masculine way, that would be en avis, avisen, aviser, avisene. So you can see that they're mostly the same. The only difference is just the two first forms. And you can actually mix them as well. You can say ei avis, avisa, or you can say en avis, avisa as well. There's some sort of leeway here. You can kind of do what you please, but you have to be consistent with that. And that's it for gender in Norwegian. If you have any questions, feel free to write in the comments. I'll make a follow-up video, most likely. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Mata ne!